Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Claire Powell, and I coordinate the EducationUSA Opportunity Funds Program here in South Africa through a partnership with the US Embassy and the Protea Foundation. Today, I'm going to explain to you what EducationUSA is, what the Opportunity Funds Program is, who should apply, and what we're looking for as an organization. And then I'll take you through online step by step so you know exactly how to complete an application successfully. So I always like to begin by explaining what or who EducationUSA is, because many students assume that we're a scholarship organization. But EducationUSA is the official US Department of State. It's a part of their advising network. And our role primarily is to provide accurate, current, and comprehensive information on US higher education and studying in the United States. So we don't represent particular universities. There are over 4,000 institutions in the US. We don't receive a commission. And we don't recommend one over the other. Our philosophy is about working with students to find their best fit. Our job is simply to make sure that students are making informed decisions about US study, tertiary study, I say. A little bit about what EducationUSA does not do. While it's important to understand that EducationUSA doesn't guarantee admission to an institution because we're an advisory service. So we cannot guarantee admission or scholarships or visa approval. We do not do the work for the students. We provide resources and guidance and review, but we do not do the work for the students, such as completing applications on their behalf. And while EducationUSA works quite closely with other programs like the Fulbright, UGrad, and PayLift, we do not administer those programs as EducationUSA. It's a separate program altogether. So again, just to kind of reiterate, our main goal is to advise students. We teach you how to build a competitive application and give you those tools and resources, but ultimately the success depends on the effort that the students that we work with ultimately put into the process. Just a little bit about where EducationUSA, where you'll find an EducationUSA Center here in South Africa. So although the Opportunity Funds Program operates nationally and mostly online, support is available throughout the country at various other centers. So where you live, so wherever you are, should I say, you're welcome to apply. But where you can find in-person resources through EducationUSA advisors based at the US Embassy and the consulates in South Africa. And we have various spaces at libraries throughout the country where you can also go for in-person resources. A little bit about the services kind of offering in totality that EducationUSA offers. Many students would first engage with EducationUSA through an introductory information session. And then from there, the advisors will hold very, subject matter specific workshops on specific components of a US college application. So you could find sessions regarding specifically how one finances a study in the United States, how to complete a US college application, preparing for standardized tests or entrance exams like the SAT, or if you're looking at a master PhD, a GRE, help in terms of how to prepare personal statements and essays that are required for US college applications, understanding the visa process, and then preparing to go through pre-departure orientations. And then, of course, one of the other programs being the Opportunity Funds Program, which we'll go into a little bit more about. I think it's also important to understand that the various centres do have varying offerings in terms of individual advising, where you can go sit with an Education USA advisor. They do outreach to schools and libraries in and around the country too. So what I would say is I highly recommend following the US Embassy social media pages to see if an advisor will be traveling in your area of the country anytime soon. Just coming back from a cold. So what is the Opportunity Funds Program? What do we exactly do? So the Opportunity Funds Program exists for one reason, and that is to remove the financial barriers that prevent exceptional students from applying to US universities. So notice I said applying. It's not a scholarship program. It does not pay the university tuition or living costs. It cannot guarantee admission. Instead, it pays for the costs involved in getting to the point where you receive an offer of admission. And hopefully the idea is that students with a high achieving profile, but coming from a low income background, would receive admission and full financial aid from a US institution. So we invest in the students who have academic ability, basically to compete for scholarships and full financial aid from universities themselves. So what the program entails is obviously not just paying those upfront costs. So selected students receive much more than just the financial assistance with application fees and testing fees and travel associated costs. They would receive mentoring throughout the entire application process, and that would include, how to research US universities, SAT assistance, how one, like essay workshops, how to complete applications in the best way possible, tips and advice on what to look for, how to complete financial aid forms and scholarship applications, interviews, preparing for their visa, interviews, and much more. So many of our students spend nearly a year working with us through this process of applying and hopefully traveling to the US. So this is probably the question we receive most often, like what actually does Opportunity Funds cover from a financial point of view? So the costs that we cover are you could break them into two parts. So phase one, the applying side of the coin, and then phase two being the traveling and getting there. So what we do cover is, as I said previously, application fees, SAT or ACT or English language testing fees, credential evaluations. Should, phase two, the actual traveling part, you get an admission offer from the university and get the financial aid that's required. Then it's the cost of a visa and the service, which is basically a fee that the US government charges for students in order to get their visas, initial travel to the US as well, that initial one-way flight to the US, and then a settling in allowance to allow them, to have options for setup costs as well. What it does not pay, it does not pay tuition, room and board, subsequent annual flights. This is just the upfront costs of applying and getting to the US. And it would not cover dependents or any sort of top-up fees or deposits. Those costs should be covered through university scholarships. That's the premise of it. We are covering the costs that generally wouldn't be covered by university financial aid. So how does Education USA find candidates? So in South Africa, applications for OFP are available through the Education USA centres and are collected on an annual basis. And how that is best done is that people would apply online. What I will say is, prior to the presentation of this, is that the application has been extended to the 31st of August. So you have an additional week to apply for the OFP program this year. But I wouldn't wait until the final evening before, because there are short answers and essays, which we're going to go through now, where one would have to fill out that as part of the application, and that can take some time, especially if you want to make a strong and compelling application. So moving along on as to how we select our students. When applications are closed, they are reviewed by a committee, and we're looking for much more than just marks and top marks. So we're looking for students who, of course, show academic ability, but in addition, a natural curiosity, leadership, resilience, proactiveness, and commitment to the process. And of course, a genuine financial need. So no single section wins you a place, should I say. We review the application holistically, much like many of the US universities would as well. A little bit in terms of application requirements. You can see here your application consists of several parts. So you will need academic results as listed on this page. Recommendation letters, which we will ask for based on information and contact details that you give us for an individual that we can reach out to provide basically a testament to your character, your skills, and so on. Please do not forget the essays and the kind of importance around the essays and the supporting documentation that we would require as part of the application. And I think it's important to not just submit an incomplete application, because incomplete applications will not be considered. So it's important to answer every single question thoughtfully and in its entirety. A little bit of timeline. So you can see here, this gives you an idea of kind of what happens after each part after selection in terms of what is expected of an individual student. And please remember, being selected means committing to a process that lasts almost a year. There are workshops, there's preparation that needs to take place, essays, and eventually visa preparation, and it does take time and commitment in order to, have the strongest application possible. Some tips and advice for a strong application, and this is probably the most important advice that I can give you, and that's to be authentic. Don't write what you think you want us to hear. Instead, tell us who you are, and not just, I would say, go further, not just tell us, show us. Who are you? What challenges have you had to overcome? What opportunities have you created for yourself if you haven't had opportunity that other students may have in a more resourced environment? How have you made the most of what is available to you, basically? We are interested in you as a whole person, and that is important. So yeah, show us who you are, be your proactiveness, and also in terms of uploading documents, make sure they are what we actually asked for in the right place. Don't just put like a placeholder to say, I will send it to you, like a blank document. Yeah, just to understand that, and just to understand that you can save it and return as long as it's on the same device. A little bit in terms of FAQs that we find, excuse me. I won't go through every kind of question here because we will answer them as we kind of go through the application. But some of the most common ones that I think are important to point out is, yes, you can still apply if you're undecided about what you want to study or what your major is. No, this isn't like a 4-year scholarship. And yes, you must be a South African or permanent resident in order to apply, because this is run through South Africa. Okay. I always like ending with this slide before we kind of move on to the how to complete an application portion, because I think it reminds us and shows us from the students what is possible. These universities represent some of the institutions where our Opportunity Fund students have gained admission and in many cases gone on to study at them. And students from South Africa, as you can see, have gone to universities such as ones that you are very familiar with, like Harvard and Yale and Stanford and so on. But there are many others that have gone to universities that you may not have heard of, and I think it just goes to show that there is an institution for every student, and there are more out there than one is probably aware of. And each of the students that we worked with have thoughtfully applied to the universities for a variety of reasons, because they honestly believe that they're the best fit for them. And that's what our premise is, to work with the students to make sure that they're applying to a variety of universities that best match them as an individual. So again, just to kind of point out, every one of these students who've gone to these institutions have started out where you are today, by putting an application in for OFP. Okay, so I've spoken enough. Now I'd like to kind of show you exactly what to expect from an application. So let me move on to that portion. All right. So when you go to, let me just share the screen. So when you go to the application, what will come up when you go to EducationUSA OFP 2026.paperform.co, you will come up to this page, which is essentially the online application. I'm going to try and explain each section as much as possible. I do think it's important to read through this initial page thoroughly, even if you want to copy and paste it into a Word document, because yeah, it's important to read everything very carefully and answer the question that is being asked of you, because remember, the application committee can only know you as much as you tell us and what you show us on the application. So if you leave something out, we cannot just assume it. Okay. So yeah, as I said, this kind of first part's about who should apply, what we're looking for. If you want to copy and paste that into a Word document, just to kind of keep track of it, you can. Okay. So the first area is basically your personal information and your details. So what I would recommend is using your legal name as it is on your ID or identity document. That's very important. And make sure that your email that you use or provide us is one that you check regularly. Your cell phone number should remain active for the upcoming year. And yeah, we'll use these details to contact you if you are successful, or yeah, there's something that we require from you. So I'm going to do and be awesome. Amazing. As long as we have multiple names, and then you can do a date of birth. Okay. This is important. So we're kind of going through and saying, phone number, important. And then because we do create a WhatsApp group, for those selected, we do ask if you can provide us your WhatsApp number if it's different from the mobile number. Okay. And I would ask you to double check your email addresses as much as possible. Go through, read it 3 times if you need to. Because I cannot tell you how many times we've gone and we've tried to email based on the email address that's been provided. And what ends up happening is that it's incorrect. And it can just make it a bit difficult to get in contact with people. You can provide an alternate email address or an email address for a parent. And then we also do ask separately for parental information. We do ask where you currently are. So as you know, the program is aimed at current matric students for 2026 and those that may be on the gap year who matriculated in 2025. So I'm going to say currently. We also understand that there are some students that are attending different curriculum type institutions. Maybe they're at an American type curriculum or calendar-based institution. Cambridge, where any number of options that where the academic year finishes in June, and you can indicate that. Okay. Have you enrolled at a this is generally aimed at gap year students, just to make sure that you haven't started at an institution already. And then we ask if you have access to reliable internet several times each month in order to attend not just the group online workshops, but also individual meetings with the OFP advisor. If access is sometimes difficult, you can explain, say, I only have access between certain hours, or it's intermittent. You can give us reasons behind it. Then what would happen for this next section is that we kind of move on to the academic information, and this is really important. It's important for us to understand you as an individual, as a student. So it's important to make sure that you give the correct information that correlates to supporting documents like your reports. And they must be clear and readable, complete, and in the correct orders. So yeah, just kind of important with regards to that. So you can indicate the curriculum that you're undertaking, what your class position or rank is. So let's say you're the Duck Scholar, we put 1, 2, 3, whatever your ranking is within your grade. And then how many students were in your class is what the US would term it, but how many pupils are currently in your grade at your school. So let's say there's 150. Okay. And not just your individual class, your entire grade. If you have any of these additional offerings in terms of subjects that are above and beyond the traditional 7, please indicate that. So if you take any sort of advanced mathematics or alphametric, but under other, so on and so forth. Again, questions and opportunity for you to explain what you have available to you. So have there been circumstances that have affected your academic performance or opportunities available to you? So let's say you're at an under-resourced school in a very rural area. Here's an opportunity to explain that. Okay. And then here's when we ask for your aggregate or your average of your remarks for each individual year of what is termed high school. Yeah, and in high school in the US is generally grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's why we ask from grade 9. Okay. So yeah, and it's important to take your reports and work out what the aggregate is, excluding LO. Okay. And then outside of grade 11, we will ask for grade 12's term 1 and term 2. Okay. If you are from a curriculum that has a different grading system, then just put it into that context so that we have understanding and you have an opportunity to explain that to us in additional information. Okay. If you have already completed your high school, so let's say you're on a gap year and you completed in 2025, then you can please give us your aggregate for matric. If it doesn't apply to you, you can always just put well, you can just leave blank because it's not a required question. The next part that you will come across is basically your essays and short answers. So this is where applicants in the committee's eyes can really separate themselves. So don't just tell us that you're hardworking, give us an example. So instead you say, so instead of saying I am resilient, you can basically tell us something very specific about a time that you demonstrated resilience. Stories are more 10 times more important and powerful than just descriptions. Just, yeah, so again, use opportunity to, say what you want to do. And again, if you have multiple interests, you can tell us about those multiple interests. Opportunity to speak about, a cohort that works together through the group presentations. It's important for you to understand how you will work together, because we've had years where students are very cohesive and they work very well together and they take initiative to work with one another. And then we have others where it's very siloed. So we want to see that you want to be part and contribute as part of a larger OFP, or EducationUSA OFP program and family. If you don't have many opportunities at your high school or secondary school, you can also explain to us what you would have liked to have done. And if you didn't have that available at school, did you take initiative to learn that on your own? Okay. Anything out of, so yes, academics is important, but we want to know about you as a whole person. So it also goes to outside of the classroom, sports, activities, clubs, family commitments, work, personal projects that you undertake. We want to know about that. And why the US? What is it about the US that interests you so much? And then the 2 essays that we specifically ask for, again, kind of giving us your authentic voice and telling us who you are, what's important to you, and understanding who you are as an individual and kind of the character of that. I'm just going to upload whatever at this point. I'm saying I'm uploading whatever at this point, but it's just to do a walkthrough. But for you as an individual, please don't just put placeholder documents. It's very, because if we do see that, we automatically will throw the applications out. So it's important for us to see a full and complete application. Dot all the I's, cross all the T's. The second essay is about curiosity and initiative, kind of what sparks you, what drives you, and so on. So take your time with writing it. And again, don't write what you think you want us to hear. Be authentic to who you are. Have somebody proofread it, but don't have someone do it for you. Yeah, essays take time, and it's in a way we're building you for what a US college application is going to ask for as well. They ask for essays. So we're preparing and kind of using that as an opportunity to see if you have what it takes. Although we do work with you, we do workshops on essays, it gives us some insight as to your commitment to the process. An important disclaimer about making sure it's your own work, experiences, ideas, voice, and so on. The next section would be about family information and financial information. So we want to know who you live with. So if you live with your mom and dad, or you live with a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or another guardian, you can note that. Okay. If grandparents are financially dependent on your parents too, then you can also indicate that. Okay. This is about children or dependents in your household, how old they are they at school, where they are at school, and so on. So family information, we need to know as much detail as possible. What we tend to find over the years is people believe that one situation will be better than the other. So let's say they won't give us too much information about the second parent when they do have that information available, because they feel like it will look better if they come from a single parent household. But you need to be as honest with us as possible, because it's, we will find out down the line, and then it makes it very hard to advocate for you with your US application process. So we ask this information to gauge what the situation is with you from a family and financial point of view. So go through, give us as much information as possible about the monthly household income, and so on. You might think, oh, I need to, be unsure on everything, but if you have some understanding, rather give us the most information as possible. Okay. It does help us in understanding, and you'd be surprised from a South African context. We understand how expensive the US system is, and there is a wide range of mean care in South Africa in order to qualify for for this program, and we understand there's a wide variety of students that would find applying and getting to the US a financial burden to them and their family. So yeah, understanding that is important to give us the best and most correct and comprehensive information that you can. Okay. Give us information about how school fees are paid. Yeah, it's all very important. And then we give the opportunity for you to explain anything as well that you feel is not being asked within the questions that we ask about the family. The question is, if you were admitted to the US university but did not receive sufficient financial aid to cover most of the cost of attendance, would your family be able to contribute substantially towards your university costs or no? And you can say unsure, that's fine. But it just gives us some understanding as if they have investments or policies in place that could contribute with anything. Okay, so you have an opportunity to explain. Supporting documents are very important. You'll see that these are required. So we do need your school reports from the final reports from grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then your term reports that are available. And then your matric certificate if you are a gap year student. Okay. It would be good if you could combine into one document grades 9, 10, 11, and what you have for grades 12. Just to make it more comprehensive. Your ID document is important, but please give us a copy of your ID. So we can confirm you are who you say you are. If you want to, this is not a requirement, but if you have a CV, you are more than welcome to provide that. There is a bit of a link there that you can use. What I would say is don't ask for access to it. Just go to the file tab and then make your own copy and save that as your own copy. Otherwise, you'll be editing the copy that I have there. And any supplementary certificates, let's say you've done short courses, like Coursera or something of that like, or some sort of programming short course, or you've received accolades for Olympiads, or anything of that nature, you can upload those here. Also like for you to give us a picture of yourself, so it can be a school picture, it can just be someone taking a picture of you against the blank wall, heads and shoulders, that would be great. Then, as we said, we don't ask you to upload a recommendation letter. We ask you to provide us the details of who could write one for you. So we ask you to please provide one academic teacher who knows you well, and they should ideally be a teacher who taught you in grade 11 or currently in grade 12 or when you were in grade 12. And we ask that you choose a teacher who knows you well from an academic point of view and how you work, rather than just simply choosing the most senior person at your school, or the teacher of the subjects in which you receive the highest marks. And we want the person to know you well so they could speak to you, not just your academic ability, but your character, your work habits, your initiative, your contribution to the school and the classroom, and then your potential for future success. Okay, so we ask for the names of these people. your math teacher, it can be science, English, social, social sciences, anything like that. Again, just clarifying, you do not need to obtain it yourself. If your application progresses through selection, we reach out to them ourselves. Okay, additional information. How did you hear about the EducationUSA Opportunity Program? Was it from school? Was it a teacher? Was it the US Embassy social media page? Was it an alumnus of our program? Friend, family, WhatsApp, other social medias, community organization, and so on. Okay. Other, you can also put other and explain it to us. And you can click, if you've heard it from multiple sources, you can also click as many as you feel apply. Previous year's experience, so maybe you attended an advising session or participated in a program, or you took the SAT, you applied to a US university already previously and it didn't work out, so you're trying again as part of a gap year. You were on one of our other programs, one of the other US Embassy programs like the PALIP or Tech Women, or any number of, or the year AFS Global Year Exchange, one of those. Okay. And then here, as I said, if you feel like there's additional information that you need to give us, or circumstances you feel like you haven't had an opportunity elsewhere in the application to get across, you can fill that out here. Okay. Then, T's and C's, if you will, and then the signature. Okay. I'm just completely making up a signature here. I'd be crazy if that was a signature. Then the date. And then you will basically be told when you will reach out. And then if any questions, you can reach out to myself at cpal at educationusa.org. Okay. Submission successful. Please follow the social media pages for Instagram and Facebook. And you are welcome to submit another application. Let's say you're doing with your friend, you can go ahead and do that. Okay. So that is essentially what will happen, and then we'll get a notification that you have submitted an application, and then we can get it ready for committee review. Okay, so that is the EducationUSA Opportunity Fund Program in a nutshell. I want to thank you for being here this evening, and any questions that you have, please reach out to cpal at educationusa.org. And we will do our best to respond. I'll do my best to respond as my email address with any questions that you do have. And if you want to join us again for an live information session, again, we will be having another one at 4 p.m. on the 25th of August. So you're welcome to join there and ask live questions if you have any. But yeah, again, thank you for watching this and joining us today. And I hope that it has answered a lot of the questions that you may have had about the program and the application. And we look forward to reading your application and getting to know you a bit better and helping you with your US application and US university dream. Thank you. Have a good night.